Hello and welcome to GameGen! If you love building empires amongst the stars, commanding massive fleets, or exploring the unknown, then you're in for a treat. The next wave of space strategy games is looking absolutely insane. Bigger galaxies, deeper mechanics, and some of the best visuals we've ever seen in the genre. So, let's jump right in and explore the upcoming space strategy games that you don't want to miss. Beyond Astra. Beyond Astra feels like one of those games aiming to reinvent what a Space 4X can be. Instead of bouncing between separate planet screens, menus, and galaxy maps, the whole thing is stitched together into one seamless universe. You can be looking at the stars 1 second, then zoom straight down onto a planet's surface to check on your cities. No loading screens, no transactions. It makes the galaxy feel more alive and connected. Almost like you're actually running a civilization rather than just managing a spreadsheet. You start off small, on a single unfamiliar world, slowly turning a tiny settlement into a real presence amongst the stars. The universe is procedurally generated, so every run feels fresh. New planets, new anomalies, stranger creatures, unexpected challenges. Once you start expanding, the real fun kicks in. Building cities, balancing over 20 resources, creating big production networks, and dealing with things like pollution and citizen happiness. It's part grand strategy, part planetary city builder, and the mix is surprisingly smooth. Combat happens in real time too, both in space and on the ground. Fleets clash with physics-based projectiles, armies fight across alien terrain, and you can tweak your units to match your playstyle. Or you can avoid direct conflict and mess with rivals through espionage or economic pressure. Stellar Trader. And now for something a little different. Stellar Trader. If you're the kind of person who prefers a spreadsheet to a starfighter, this one is gonna scratch a very specific itch. Think of this as the ultimate space tycoon fantasy. You aren't necessarily the chosen hero trying to save the galaxy, you're just trying to make a profit in it. You start with a rusty little freighter and a few credits, buying low and selling high. But eventually, you're commanding massive trade vessels and building your own space stations. What I really dig about this game is that it lets you be a puppet master. You don't have to fight the wars yourself, you can just fund them. You can manipulate political alliances, cause resource shortages to drive up prices, and basically run the galaxy from the shadows. But it's not all cold hard cash. There's actually a surprising amount of slice of life stuff here. You're managing a crew, exploring ancient ruins, and even dealing with personal storylines and romances. It makes the universe feel lived in, rather than just a backdrop for economic graphs. It's definitely a slower burn than your typical action game, but it's super relaxing in its own way. If you've ever wanted to roleplay as the Han Solo type, but, the version that actually pays off his debts, Stellar Trader is definitely worth checking out. Calyx. Calyx is a strategy game where you're put in charge of a space mining outpost, but instead of fighting the usual space pirates or generic aliens, you're literally fighting nature. You're up against the Calyx, these massive, aggressive plant aliens that are determined to reclaim their turf. The gameplay loop is really satisfying. You're building up your base, scrambling to gather resources, and assembling your defenses, all while the environment is creeping up on you. It's not just about shooting, it's about managing your expansion against its organic spreading threat. What I honestly love most about this though is the atmosphere. You're totally isolated out there. Your only company is the glitchy, out-of-date AI that tries to guide you. The banter is actually pretty funny and adds a lot of personality to what could have been a lonely experience. It gives the whole game this gritty, survival against the odds vibe that really pulls you in. If you're into base building but you're tired of the same old military themes, definitely give Calyx a look. There's just something strangely addictive about waging war against giant space weeds while your robot buddy makes snarky comments. It's stressful, sure, but it's a total blast. I'll be covering more games just like this one, so if that's your kind of thing, come hang out and subscribe. Battlestar Galactica: Scattered Hopes. Alright, let's jump into something that will absolutely crush your soul, in the best way possible. We're talking about Battlestar Galactica: Scattered Hopes. Now, if you're a fan of the show, you know the vibe. Humanity's on the ropes, constantly running, and every decision is basically a coin flip between bad and worse. Well, this game captures that desperation perfectly. It's a turn-based strategy game, but your most precious resource isn't Tilium or water, it's morale. You're basically playing as the weary command staff, constantly making choices for the remaining colonial fleet. Do you risk an FTL jump to save a few hundred people but burn half your fuel reserves? Do you put a political agitator in the brig and risk civil unrest? Or let them sow chaos? Every choice ripples across the fleet's population, and the Cylons are always right on your tail. Honestly, I love just how heavy the choices feel here. This isn't just about managing numbers, it feels like you're truly carrying the burden of humanity. When you make a decision that saves the fleet but makes the food shortage worse, you feel that stress. It's gritty, it's political, and it truly nails the Battlestar Galactica feeling of constantly fighting for survival. Alliance of the Sacred Sons. Alliance of the Sacred Sons takes the usual grand strategy formula and flips it on its head. Instead of playing as some invisible, all-powerful presence managing every planet and fleet, you actually step into the shoes of a single ruler, a newly crowned emperor or empress trying to pull a fading interstellar empire back from the brink. And the twist? You only get one lifetime to do it. No heirs, no dynasty gameplay. When your character dies, the run is over, which adds a surprising amount of pressure to every decision. The whole game revolves around how you spend your limited action points each season. You can't just micromanage planets or shuffle dozens of fleets like in a normal 4X. Instead, you make high-level decisions, meet influential nobles, push major projects forward, and try to keep your empire from fracturing. Because most of the real work is done by the great houses, powerful families with their own agendas, you need them more than they need you. If they like you, they'll support your reforms. If they don't, they might accidentally sabotage your projects, or start planning a coup. Your character also has personal needs that you can't ignore. Too much stress, too many immoral choices, or simply too many crises piling up can take a toll on your health and spirit, shortening your life and reducing the time you have to save the Empire. Capital Command. Capital Command drops you straight into the captain's chair of a massive capital ship, the kind of vessel that feels more like a moving fortress than a regular spaceship. You're stationed in a remote frontier system where something has gone seriously wrong. The AI that controls the local defense platforms has suddenly turned hostile, and your ship becomes the only real chance to restore order before everything spirals out of control. The whole game is built around managing a huge, heavy warship with realistic physics, which makes every decision feel very important. Instead of zipping around like a fighter pilot, you're dealing with inertia, slow rotations, and the challenge of lining up ship the size of a building to make your shots count. You'll be issuing orders to your crew, gunners, navigators, engineers, repair teams, all while trying to keep the ship functioning through chaotic battles. Combat feels tactical and deliberate. Firing passes are the backbone of most fights. You line up your approach, unleash your weapons while you're in range, then swing around for another run. Spotting enemies early really matters, because long-range weapons and missiles can decide a fight before ships even get close. While that's happening though, point defense systems try to swat down incoming threats, and your damage control teams scramble to patch up whatever's on fire. Progression is handled through a sandbox-style campaign where you salvage scrap from defeated enemies, repair your ship, unlock upgrades, and occasionally get the chance to capture an enemy capital ship for yourself. Mars Tactics. Mars Tactics throws you straight into a gritty uprising on the Red Planet, where every decision feels like it's shaping the future of an entire colony. Instead of a simple back and forth between armies, the game pits two wildly different factions against each other, each fighting for their own vision of Mars. What makes Mars Tactics stand out though is how it blends big picture strategy with tight squad level action. On the strategic map, you're not just marching armies around, you're managing exhaustion, handling logistics, directing research, and reacting to a living economy that shifts based on what happens on the ground. Blow up a mine and suddenly water prices spike across the region. Lose a transport route, and your faction may find itself short on equipment or manpower. Then, when a battle kicks off, the game zooms into turn-based tactical combat inspired by classics like XCOM and Jagged Alliance. The battlefields are completely destructible, letting you blast holes through walls, collapse buildings, or carve makeshift trenches to protect your squad. Suppression fire can shut down enemy movement, soldiers evolve organically based on what they do, and the free aim system gives you full control over every shot, including creative plays like shooting out cover or opening new doors with a well-placed grenade. Star Trek Voyager: Across the Unknown. Star Trek Voyager: Across the Unknown is basically what happens when you mix the tension of FTL with the storytelling heart of Star Trek, then throw the whole thing into the chaotic danger of the Delta Quadrant. You're stepping into the captain's chair of the USS Voyager right after it gets stranded, and your job is simple on paper: get everyone home. In reality, it's a juggling act of repairs, diplomacy, survival, moral dilemma, and a whole lot of how do we not die today? Voyager starts the game in pretty rough shape, so you're immediately dealing with damaged rooms, failing systems, and a ship that feels like it's held together with hopes and duct tape. You'll need to rebuild everything from crew quarters to research labs, all while managing resources that disappear way faster than they come in. Every decision matters: what you choose to fix first, who you assign to what station, even which sector to explore next. The storytelling, though, is where the game really shines. It leans hard into what-if scenarios. Want to dive deeper into board tech? You can. Want to rewrite crew fates or change big moments from the show? Go for it. Every mission, encounter, and away team decision feels like it branches the story in meaningful ways. Combat is tense and tactical, requiring you to assign crew to stations and react on the fly, while away missions play out more like interactive fiction, with choices that can go very right or very, very wrong. Beyond These Stars. Beyond These Stars is one of those games where the concept alone already hooks you. Instead of building a city on a planet, a moon, or some chunk of space rock, you're setting up an entire civilization on the back of a massive sentient space whale named Kiwa. And yes, Kiwa actually reacts to the way you build, expand, and treat their environment, which gives the whole experience a surprisingly warm, almost personal vibe. Your little people, called peeps, rely on Kiwa as both their home and their protector. So while you're managing your usual production chains, farms, power grids, and supply lines, you also need to make sure you're not stressing Kiwa out with pollution or heavy industry. If they get upset, they might drift into some hazardous cosmic storms or nebulae that temporarily shut down your buildings. But if you invest in understanding them, communicate properly, and build sustainably, Kiwa becomes an ally rather than just transportation. Space exploration plays a big role as well. Because Kiwa can't provide everything your city needs, you'll periodically send expeditions to planets you pass by. These outposts are temporary. Kiwa eventually keeps moving, so you're constantly deciding what resources to gather before it's time to pack up and continue the journey. There's also a story running through everything, tied to the origins of your people and the mysterious culture of the space whales. Along the way, you'll meet alien species who judge your civilization based on how responsibly you treat Kiwa. Falling Frontier. If you've ever wished space RTS games were a little less spam units fast and a little more actual military strategy, Falling Frontier is basically that dream game. Instead of rushing out 100 ships, this one makes you think like a real commander. Every ship needs fuel, ammo, and supplies, no exceptions. So, if you manage to cut off your enemy's supply lines, their giant Doom fleet instantly turns into a bunch of stranded metal drifting in space. It's honestly super satisfying. Recon is another big deal here. There's no magical fog of war reveal. You actually have to scout. But the catch is, every time you scan something, you're also revealing yourself. So the whole game becomes this tense cat and mouse hunt where you're trying to spot the enemy without showing your own location. And yes, you can hide ships in asteroid fields to set up ambushes, which is honestly just cool. Ship design is fully modular too. You pick the hull, the engines, the weapons, utility modules, and where you place them does matter. If a sensor module gets blown off, you fly blind. If your turret can't turn far enough, it literally can't shoot. Combat is all physics-based, so shots can miss, ricochet, or hit the wrong target entirely. The game's been delayed a few times now, but honestly, with a solo dev behind most of it, it's pretty impressive just how ambitious it is. Right now, it's aiming for a 2026 early access launch on PC, and it's definitely one of the more unique RTS games on the horizon. Fragile Existence. Fragile Existence is basically that fantasy turned into an RTS 4X survival hybrid. The setup is bleak, but super compelling. Humanity gets absolutely steamrolled by a mysterious alien armada. Earth is gone, the colonies are gone, and all that's left is one desperate refugee fleet trying to stay alive. And you're the one in charge of keeping this whole mess from falling apart. What makes the game really special is how you jump between two layers of strategy. In space, you manage the fleet, organizing ships, moving passengers and crew, customizing vessels with modules like hangars, refineries, and weapon systems, and engaging in proper ship-to-ship combat. Then, at any moment, you can zoom all the way down onto a planet's surface, and suddenly you're in full RTS mode. You're deploying dropships, building bases, mining resources, and sending out troops, tanks, or mechs. The transition is seamless and feels ridiculously cool. One of the standout mechanics, though, is its physicalized resources. Nothing is abstract. If you mine iron on a planet, that iron actually exists as cargo that needs to be flown to a refinery ship in orbit, processed, and then moved again to another ship to build units. Logistics suddenly become this huge, satisfying puzzle, especially since you're always racing against the alien fleet hunting you system by system. The campaign is non-linear, the planets are varied, modding tools are planned, and although the release has been delayed several times, it's now aiming for sometime around 2026. Twilight Imperium Digital. Twilight Imperium Digital turns the legendary marathon tabletop epic into a digital stage where galactic politics, betrayal, and massive fleet clashes all play out with a few clicks, and still the same glorious chaos. Your goal is simple on paper: reach 10 victory points, but getting there is a delicious mess of diplomacy, backstabbing, clever strategy, and big cinematic fights. The game loops are around the classic 4X pillars: explore a modular galaxy of hex tiles, expand by claiming planets for resources and influence, exploit those assets to build ships and tech, and exterminate rivals when talks fail, or when you're just feeling vindictive. What makes each session feel like a story is the mix of strategy cards and objectives. Pick powerful cards that shape the round, chase public and secret objectives, and suddenly you're juggling short-term power plays with long-term schemes. Politics is where Twilight Imperium really flexes. The agenda phase turns players into lawmakers. Vote on galaxy-changing laws, rig the system with deals, or trade your support for favors. Voting power comes from the planets you hold, so territorial control becomes political capital. Negotiation is not optional. Alliances, promises, and threats are the currency of the late game. Combat is tactical and satisfying. Dreadnoughts, carriers, infantry, and space stations all come together in cinematic battles where timing and fleet composition matter. Factions are wildly asymmetric. Pick a race that fits your vibe, whether that's trading, scheming, or steamrolling. The digital edition keeps the tabletop's grand scale but handles the bookkeeping, timers, and multiplayer so you can focus on the drama, the strategy, and those glorious "did you just stab me" moments. If you like games where politics and Warframe are equally deadly, this is the galactic soap opera you've been waiting for. Sanctuary: Shattered Sun. Sanctuary: Shattered Sun is one of those RTS games that immediately makes old-school strategy fans go, "Oh wow, they're really doing it." It's basically the spiritual successor to Supreme Commander and Total Annihilation. Big maps, huge armies, ridiculous late-game weapons, and that satisfying feeling of commanding a war that spans kilometers. The game takes place on Sanctuary, which isn't just any planet. It's an enormous artificial Dyson sphere built around a sun. So every battle you fight is literally happening on the inner shell of this megastructure. And yes, the game leans into that hard. Some super weapons can actually crack open the surface and drop your enemy's entire base straight into the sun. It's dramatic in the best way possible. Scale here is everything. Maps can reach massive 40km by 40km sizes, and the engines can handle up to 10,000 units at once. You're not just sending a squad, you're sending a whole army, air wings, tank columns, artillery lines, and gigantic war machines all moving at the same time. But Sanctuary isn't just about size, it's also about creativity. You can literally freeze oceans to create new land routes or trap enemy ships. The whole environment is part of your toolkit. Combat is fully simulated as well. Every missile, shot, and beam is physically molded, so battles feel chaotic and alive. You'll pick from 3 factions with totally different philosophies and unit designs: the Industrial EDA, the Sleek Chosen, and the Mysterious Guard. Ascendance. Ascendance is the kind of space strategy game that immediately feels bigger than anything you've played before. Instead of giving you a simplified version of the galaxy, Ascendance leans all the way into realism. You're managing a living, breathing civilization where every factory, every freighter, and every political drama is happening because the simulation says so, not because the game is faking it. You're basically running a spacefaring government, and the scale can get wild. The galaxy isn't broken into turns or little chunks. It's one seamless real-time sandbox that can include thousands of star systems. If you want to zoom out and play the big picture leader who sets policies and budgets, go for it. If you want to zoom all the way in and obsess over a specific mine on an asteroid, that's possible too. The economy is one of the coolest parts. Everything is supply and demand driven, and goods physically move around on freighters. Corporations build their own facilities, hire workers, play the markets, and basically act like independent empires inside your empire. And because all of this is simulated, shortages, price spikes, and political tension happen organically. But Ascendance isn't just spreadsheets and planning. When fleets clash, battles happen in full real-time RTS style, with physics-based movement, crewed ships, predictive weapon targeting, and locational damage. A lucky hit can knock out engines, fry weapons, or leave a ship limping home. Planetbase 2. Planetbase 2 is basically what happens when you take the original Planetbase, mix in some Dawn of Man energy, and then crank everything up to feel bigger, smoother, and way more ambitious. This time, you're not just building a cute little Mars outpost, you're trying to run a full self-sustaining colony across multiple planets in the solar system. And every planet has its own personality. Mars is your warm-up, but once you start moving outwards, the game starts throwing nastier challenges at you, from brutal sandstorms to solar flares and even meteor showers that can ruin your day in one hit. The fun part is how much control the game gives you, without overwhelming you. Most of the base runs automatically. Your colonists know what to do, your robots keep things moving, and your production chains hum along nicely. But when things get messy, you can jump in and manually direct individual people, drones, or even vehicles. Speaking of vehicles, Planetbase 2 has upgraded them a lot. There's a pressurized truck so your settlers can travel long distances without a suit, plus mining rigs, tankers, and a dedicated hangar to store everything. Resource management is still the heart of the game, but it's deeper now. You're mining regolith, manufactured materials, growing veggies in big greenhouses, and even synthesizing meat in labs. Energy production is also more advanced: solar, wind, nuclear, you name it. And with a big tech tree filled with 50 to 60 upgrades, your tiny outpost slowly becomes a bustling futuristic settlement. STARHOME. STARHOME feels like one of those strategy games that immediately puts you on edge, but in a good way. Instead of building a comfy base on a planet somewhere, you start the game with everything you've packed into a battered fleet drifting through space. Your home world is gone, your people are scattered across a handful of ships, and you're basically trying to keep everything alive while searching for a new place to settle. It gives off that classic Battlestar Galactica, we're running for our lives vibe mixed with the tactical feel of Homeworld. Your fleet isn't just a bunch of ships, it is your town, your factory, your shelter, your everything. And because space inside each ship is super limited, every upgrade becomes a tough choice. Do you use that precious space for living quarters? Or do you squeeze in a refinery to get more resources? Maybe you want extra armor or weapons, but something else has to go. That constant trade-off is a big part of what makes the game tense and interesting. As you travel through a procedurally generated galaxy, you're always planning your next jump, checking the fuel cost, estimating how long it'll take, and deciding whether a route is safe enough or risky but rewarding. And when threats show up, battles play out in real time, forcing you to coordinate your ships, manage positioning, and decide if a fight is worth the risk. Along the way, you can upgrade and expand your fleet, even recruit allied ships if you're lucky. STARHOME looks like a blend of survival pressure, strategic depth, and that constant feeling of being one decision away from disaster or victory. I hope you found this video helpful. Be sure to leave a comment below if any of these games caught your eye, or if there are other upcoming releases you'd like to hear about. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing for more gaming content in the future. Thanks for watching.